in what ways can we be pioneer species, and then what ways can we get out of the way?
We are at the Australian Permaculture Convergence 2023 and I am here with Guy and Toad of PermaQueer. So excited to learn more about the work that you're doing. Can you tell us about PermaQueer and why you started it?
PermaQueer actually emerged out of the 2019-2020 NAM, or so-called Melbourne lockdowns. We had studied permaculture in this really fantastic permaculture transition house with Delton Fleming. And at the time, before COVID kind of happened, we thought it was this lovely kind of maybe alternative kind of hippie practice, but I honestly couldn't see the value in it until systems started to fall down a little bit. And suddenly we had food security, we had housing security, we built alternative economies nested within our community. And despite a lot of our friends who were earning significantly more than us, we were structurally sound. And so I could really see the value in this design methodology. So that's really what kind of inspired us a little bit. And it was actually from there, we kind of got together, put our heads together and thought, well, can we maybe use this to support other communities that we're a part of?
Yeah. And so initially we started by just teaching permaculture to the queer communities, which spread very quickly through the global queer sort of environmental leaning communities. So we were teaching on every continent except for Antarctica within about 2 months, which was amazing. And then we started to see this sort of feedback from these communities that the experiences and the systems that these people lived in fed back into how we design. So we started integrating that feedback, and it put a new social lens on how we design with permaculture that has now become what we know to be PermaQueer. Yeah.
A very meaningful journey. And in the work you're doing, how do you define queering permaculture? What does that look like to you both?
Oh, there you go.
I'll jump in. So we actually had a gift from an amazing Aboriginal friend of ours, Tyson Yunkaporta, when we contacted him to do our first TEDx series. And he asked us, were we queers doing permaculture or were we queering permaculture? Which prompted us very quickly to think about what did that actually mean. And so, you know, we spent a lot of time thinking about, well, okay, what is it to queer permaculture? What is it to queer? And for us, it took actually thinking and analysing and relating to the communities that we were talking to recognise that these new approaches that they were suggesting and these new perspectives and life experiences, they were in action queering. So for us, it's about thinking about what are other ways that we can do traditional things, or other ways that we can consider social norms, or other ways that we can engage in the structures of society that might be more fitted for what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Guy. I also want to share, I will paraphrase a quote by the incredible Hannah Breckbill of Humble Hands Harvest, who gave us a definition of queering in a talk she did with us called Queering the Economics of Farming. And she described queering as the act of uncovering and questioning social norms and building relationships and systems to better meet the needs of all. This for us has kind of been a real, kind of bit of a north star for us in some ways. How can we actually question the ways of being and not just critique these systems, but build complex systems and relationships to better meet our needs and the needs of those we're in relationship with. Yeah.
I know that you've both done a lot of thinking on what these systems are. You have great awareness on the norms that you're questioning. Are you able to articulate a bit more about and name some of those systems and norms?
Would you like to?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think for us, it's been really analysing the issues that we are experiencing as communities and listening, as we said, to the marginalised voices from within these communities. So some of them are, you know, these big systems that we all understand of capitalism and colonialism, but looking at them through an ecological and even a permaculture lens to recognise, okay, if they're systems, they have patterns, and if these are patterns that we can recognise, we can design with them and engage with them. Other ones have been racism, which is rampant, and a really powerful system that we actually uphold. White supremacy is a really massive one in the Australian context. So racism and then ableism. So recognizing that the way that our society is structured actually does not value health and well-being in the way that it should, and doesn't recognize what the full spectrum of health and well-being actually is.
And just to add a little bit on the end there, from a systems thinking perspective, we know that to change the outcome, we need to change the system. To change the system, we need to change the pattern. So how can we become, as designers, cognizant of the patterns that replicate to create these systems? And what does it mean then to change those patterns? I'm always inspired by the quote Audre Lorde's, "The master's tools will not dismantle the master's house." And in my kind of permaculture brain, I kind of think, the master's patterns will not dismantle the master's house. So what then can we draw from nature and from well-functioning systems in amongst people and in nature itself, can we use to create regenerative systems?
I've heard you quote Audre Lorde a few times, Toad, and every time you do, I'm like thankful it takes on a new meaning for me. Yeah, thank you. And you both are. I want to congratulate you and thank you for being able to address these big topics and big questions that can feel quite confronting and scary for people to look at in such kind and thoughtful. And it feels like very regenerative ways in the way that you deliver your messages.
Thank you.
A question for you about, so a lot of the work that you do is educating people in the permaculture community and beyond, but you're also very much in service to your own queer community. Can you tell us a bit about who the queer community is within the permaculture community?
Within the permaculture community, I think that what's been really exciting being here at the APC is that they're here already. Like they've been invisible because there's been no space to actually celebrate or kind of shine that spotlight in the ways that queer people live, thrive despite systems trying to invisible them. I think queer communities and any kind of when I say queer, of course I mean LGBT plus people, but also I mean in the queer theory perspective of those on the fringe, those on the margins. By invisibling those people, we lose the innovation that they have done. And would you like to speak to this a bit more, actually?
Yeah. I think what's important to note about, in our session we spoke about privilege and the role of privilege and the function of privilege in social ecosystems. And to, queer community and permaculture, it's been here for a long time. We're not the first to do it. We just had the privilege to allow it to come to light and to tell the story. So we very much stand on the shoulders of incredible women, femmes and queers in the permaculture movement. But now we're also able to speak explicitly and give visibility to a space so that more understanding and awareness, and so we can be cultivated around it. And we're aware that there are a lot of young queer people that care about regeneration, that care about social harmony, that are coming into this space, but they're not really seeing a home for them. And so it's about us connecting with the queer elders that already exist in this movement, that have been doing work tirelessly for years, and also creating a space that's relevant and contextual for the new young people coming through who recognize themselves in that community and they have a home in this space as well. Yeah. Did you want to add?
I might just add a little bit as well about the timeliness of this as well, and draw some parallels between ecological succession and social succession. Guy and I get to kind of be these faces, because whilst we exist in these technical marginalities, we're very privileged amongst those people. I'm white, non-binary, able-bodied, neurodivergent, so I fit into these technical categories, but my privilege allows me to be visible. And just like ecological succession is a series of cascades, we at PermaQueer, we love pushing this work, but we know that it's not just going to be Guy and I long term. It's going to have to become a network. It's going to have to become mycelial. And we're really excited to see in what ways can we be pioneer species, and then what ways can we get out of the way, and who's going to then kickstart those ever increasingly complex and wonderful systems.
Wow. Thank you for the depth of knowledge and thinking that you bring to this community, and thank you for offering us new perspectives and such heart in the way that you bring your gifts to the world. So thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you.